Or at least, the mostly easy way. What is up, everybody, and welcome back to Toast Hammer, where we're finally taking on one of my most ambitious model building goals in my hobby thus far. Building and magnetizing one of the big boy knights. If you saw my last video on how I finally got my K-pop inspired paint job finalized, well, you know that I couldn't just stick it to the small guys. I had to build one of the big ones too. And with the variety of weapon loadouts available to these large knights, I wanted to make sure that this one would be, well, codex proof. Throughout the different editions of Warhammer, its weapons are made bad, made good, made bad again, and then sometimes even made good again. So it's nice to magnetize your weapon options so you're never just left in the dust with some poor modeling choices that you made years ago. Luckily, with knights, it's actually super easy to do. Let's get into it. So, I will be magnetizing this knight with the assistance of the Knight Magnetization Kit from the Magnet Baron, who is not sponsoring this episode. They just make really nice magnets. All of the magnet sizes are shown in this guide, so no need to worry. You can purchase your own from other sources if you find them more accessible, cheaper, or whatnot. But to get started, you don't even need to think about magnetizing for the first good portion of the build. Doing all of the legs and the torso, you can get up to this step without even thinking about magnets. After doing so, you may think that the chest weapon needs to be magnetized, but it actually doesn't. All three of the chest weapon options will pressure fit nicely into the little kind of spoke thing that it has. I did decide to glue that in position instead of letting it swivel around because I thought that the join between the kind of loop that is created looked a little bit weak. You could also magnetize the tilt shield. I'm choosing not to in this case because it seems just kind of extra. Like, why would you need to change that? So I'm not gonna do that. I'll also not be doing some of the other optional magnetizing parts like the shoulders, which don't need to be magnetized, or the faceplate, which I also don't feel the need to change out for any particular reason. I am, however, leaving the armor plates off of the build for the entirety of it to make painting easier down the line. There's nothing to do with magnetization, it's just explaining why my knight looks a little bit naked. So the first part that you actually do need to magnetize is the carapace weapon, the thing that goes above its head. And that looks like it might be able to pressure fit, but the tolerances between the parts just kind of aren't there, so we're going to need to use some magnets. Taking out the appropriate size magnets, first we clip off the little stub in the base of the weapons, the missile launcher and the auto guns. You could theoretically magnetize the face of the missiles. I'm not doing that because if anybody cares about the size of the missiles on your knight, they're a nerd. After clipping off the stub, you can just kind of glue a magnet right in there. You don't even really need to drill anything out. But you do need to drill out the hole on the carapace itself. I'm going not all the way through on this magnet hole for the specific reason that if I don't want a carapace weapon for points cost or whatever other possible reason, then it'll still look nice with some decent detailing there. So, going almost all the way through, but just not quite, we are able to rest a magnet inside the carapace, and even though there is technically just a little gap of not magnetized material, the magnets provided here are strong enough to have a pretty secure bond regardless of that. So your carapace weapon is not really going to be moving much after you stick that on there. This is probably the most simple part of the magnetization effort, but the rest is not too bad either. Next, we get to the arms, which is where the majority of our magnet mania begins. The first thing we're going to do is assemble the arms incorrectly. You're supposed to attach the elbows to the kind of bicep not forearm, arm parts. the upper arm and lower arm are supposed to be attached in a way that they swivel. We're going to be assembling those separately, and it's going to look like we messed up. But don't worry, that's a lie. We didn't mess up, at least not yet. After that is done, you're going to be sawing off the kind of pegs of the upper arm, that swivel part, in order to put our magnet there. And you can just stick on a magnet. You don't need to really drill it in. And in fact, the extra space that the magnet gives us will let us create tighter bonds later on. I also at this point just assembled all of the shoulder assemblies and all of the constituent weapon parts that were not a part of the arm itself, just like the weapon holders and things of that nature. Luckily for this kit and its almost infinite amount of versatility, we were also able to get all of the lower arms assembled and attached to the weapons with enough spare parts to just follow the instructions as is for those lower arms. Now, there is one further modification that we're going to make to the instructions, which is where the volcano gun, battle cannon, and the laser thing, those are all on the same weapon chassis. So we're going to leave those off for now, just assembled into kind of sub-assemblies. Now, the next step should be adding magnets to those lower arms to connect them to the upper arms. But here is where I made a mistake that really came to bite me in the butt later on, which is magnetizing the weapon chassis of that battle cannon and volcano gun and laser thing first. Don't do this. It's bad. And I'll explain why later. But what you should be doing at this stage is magnetizing all of the lower arm section. Be very careful with your polarity here, because if you mess it up, well, your arms are going to be repelled from each other, and that is not how you want your knight to be. You would like them to have arms that attach. But if you are careful with your polarity, a couple of the arms can just put the magnets straight inside them without any additional work. But some of them, like for example, the fist gauntlet, I think Thunderstrike gauntlet, that sounds right, needs a little bit of extra gap filling, which I did in the form of spare bits of sprue and also sprue goo to make a really solid bond there. After getting those areas to an appropriate height, you can then just place your magnet as normal and set it, again, being very careful of the polarity. After all of your lower arms are attached, you're pretty much all the way there. You'll at least have most of your weapon loadouts totally ready at this point. But the last thing to do is the volcano cannon, and battle cannon, and laser thing. Now, what we're doing for this, well, the battle cannon is the easiest one. You can just kind of stick a magnet in there and that should attach totally fine. For the volcano cannon and the laser thing, however, there is a little bit of a mismatch where some of the chassis parts were intersecting with like the shield in a weird way, so I had to take out my razor saw and just kind of trim that part of the shield down so it would fit nice and smoothly. I wasn't fully sure if this is going to work, but my theory was we don't even need to magnetize the shield part if we just magnetize the gun, and the shield will kind of just pressure fit together between the two magnetized parts. It ended up working perfectly. We needed a little bit more of sprue filler in the volcano cannon, but the laser thing we could just lay a magnet right in the middle there. Now, these parts aren't as secure of a bond as some of the other magnetized parts, so they can flop around a little bit, but in the sense of playing a normal game, I don't think there's really going to be any issues with the security of your guns there. You can see some really messed up parts on the gun chassis of this entire thing. There's a lot of just gross stuff happening at the lower arm joint there. That's because the polarity got messed up. It turns out that the gun actual, like the thing that magnetized the gun parts was in reverse polarity to what the lower arm polarity needed to be. So it was really hard to get that in a secure spot as it kept on wanting to pop out. That led to a lot of super glue getting all over my hands, my face, and just everywhere. And it ended up in this situation where we have a really ugly lower arm joint. I was able to sand most of it down so it still works and it is magnetized properly with the proper polarities, but don't make the same mistakes I did. Glue your lower arm parts in first before handling the gun parts. But with all of that said and done, your knight is now fully magnetized. It's really not. That's it. There's nothing else to do. If you want to magnetize the head, I mean, you can get into that. The magnet kit does come with magnets specifically for that thing, and magnetizing the shoulders, I find you don't really need to do because they kind of just lock into place with the rotating mechanism. So you're totally fine there. But hey, you're now the proud owner of a complete knight with all of its weapon loadouts hot swappable, no matter what situation you need them for. All in all, I've found this knight build to be really a joy. It's a really nice model kit, and the modularity of all the weapons makes it really kind of fun and an interesting challenge to kind of puzzle out how to fit them all together. And it's really a lot less difficult than I think people give it credit for. It's I think seen as an intimidating project, but it's really not. It's really not bad at all. But that about does it for this video. Hopefully it was easy enough to follow. Let me know how you found the guide in the comments below, and if you did find it useful, be sure to give me a like. It always helps the channel out. And there's definitely going to be more content coming on the future of my knight house. Lore, painting, and maybe even one of those new ones. Make sure you stay subscribed so you don't miss a single video. And until then, I'll see you guys next time. Peace!